And we are live. This is Ring the Bell podcast number 23. I'm here with my co host Nathan. How are you today, Nathan, man?
Good mate, how are you?
Not bad at all, man. Not bad at all. Had a pretty chill weekend trip away to the coast. Chilled on the beach. Had a swim in the sea. Revitalized, refreshed, ready to get back to it. I did manage to catch most of the fights. I've still got to catch up on a couple of them, but I'm sure you watched most of them as well. So
Didn't
I'm
Garcia fight? I watched the
ah
Cajano fight. Did you watch the Cajano fight? I'll talk.
yeah. That was a good knockout, but God, what shouldn't be a fight that was even happening. Obviously, I have my jokes about Kajanu, how he's the next Gospich, but yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't pretty. Let's start off with I'm just gonna pull it up here on BoxRec. The entire card from the UK, because I did catch most of this, and there were some great fights. This turned out to be a good card. We'll start out with Frank Buglioni, who had a relatively easy win over an absolute nobody, and it taught us absolutely nothing. But he's back with a win. Hopefully, they'll put him in a good fight soon. It wasn't anything that interesting. Anthony Fowler versus Craig O'Brien, I think it is. This was
Yeah,
a good little fight. Did you catch this one?
I watched most of it. The knockout impressed me. Oh, that was brutal.
Yeah, and I mean, Craig O'Brien kept the rounds close. Like he gave Anthony Fowler a good learning fight, I would say. So it was a good little scrap this, and Anthony Fowler finished it well. He looked good, but Craig O'Brien wasn't terrible in there. I think against a sort of lower level European or British domestic level guy, he might, be able to come back. So it was a good little scrap that. Then we move on to a fight that I am quite pleased about. Dave Allen knocking out Nick Webb in the fourth round with quite a brutal punch. Now, for me, Dave Allen boxed this fight all wrong, and he's gone a bit crazy thinking he's a power puncher. Now, he obviously does carry power because he can knock people out. But for the first four rounds, I was worried he was just going to do the same thing he did against Tony Yoka. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just become a punching bag.
Yeah, the same. That's what he was doing, but he got the lucky punch, and now his career can move forward. Interesting loss for Nick Webb. Don't really know where that puts him. I don't think
Uh,
anyone ever expected him to lose to Dave Allen.
Problem with Nick Webb is he fought. Do you remember last week? And I said he fought 12 nothings, whereas Dave Allen had been in there with world class people,
It's
and
true.
I think that was a difference in this fight. Or maybe do you think it was a lucky shot? I'd have to say it was probably a lucky shot. I don't know.
He timed it right, but he wasn't setting it up. I think there was some luck involved with that, yes. I think he's the right
Do you
man in the
think
right place at the right time to
if they
land
had a
that shot.
rematch, Allen could do the same thing again? Because I'm not so sure.
I think if they had a rematch, Dave Allen said he's taken 6 months out to get fit and take boxing seriously. And with the win bonus from that fight, he can afford to do that.
Yeah.
So it's actually a good thing. I think he can take some time away, get serious, and get back to boxing shape and take it properly. Now he's got another. That's quite a good win on his record. If we actually look at David Allen's record, he's got David Howe on there twice, Jason Gavin, and now he's got Nick Webb. Obviously, he's got some losses: Tony Yoka, Lenroy Thomas, Lewis Ortiz, Dillian Whyte. But you'd have to say at least Ortiz and Whyte are very credible, and we have to remember that Dave Allen took Dillian Whyte the distance, whereas Dillian Whyte is knocking out these other guys down.
He's a different fighter.
Sure, that's very true. That's very true. Larry Alabama Wu as well. Dave Allen's got on there. So some interesting, bizarre form from David Allen where he gets a good win, takes an odd loss, gets a good win, takes an odd loss.
Look,
Let's hope
can I
they. Yep.
Be honest. How long ago is it he fought Jason Gurn? Is it 3 years ago?
Jason Gavin, 2016, early 2016,
So
about two and a
basically,
half years ago. Yeah.
this one is taking him back to where he was then after he beat Gavin.
Basically, I agree, but he can now move on from this in a positive manner. And to be fair, he will have learnt a lot even in his defeat.
Hmm.
So it
But
is
even
interesting.
he's in line to get a British title shot. The possibility of they don't want a Dubar or any of the other top British fighters of yet to get in there. He wants
That's
a Gary
true.
Corn or a Sam
Yeah,
Sexton.
I would say Gary Cornish, Sam Sexton, some of the other guys around that level at the moment. There's a
David
guy,
Price would be a good
maybe.
fight.
There's another guy called Cash Ali.
Oh, right, that would be a
Uh,
good fight.
he's 12-0. David Price, you're right, and maybe Nathan Gorman. Um, there's not a lot of other guys up and coming at that level that he hasn't already been in there with. So you wouldn't want to see him fight Nick
Yeah.
Webb
But you
again.
wouldn't put Dubai in them, would you? Because you have to say Dubai hasn't fought anyone. Would you put him in the same bracket as Nick Webb currently with what he's done? Or
No,
is that being disrespectful?
I think that's being disrespectful in some ways. I think Dubois carries a lot more power. Like Dubois is 6'5", and he's a real. I think he's a bit of a monster, really.
But really, he's still in development mode. So really, they wouldn't
Yeah,
risk it.
it is a bit dodgy. I mean, I personally think you're right. I mean, we can talk about Cornish quickly, actually. Didn't
Yeah.
we? I was looking at something you sent me. He's got an upcoming fight against Filip Hrgović for the WBC International Heavyweight title. And if he can beat Hrgović, I don't think he will, but if he could beat
Mm,
Hrgović, that'd be a good fight for the British in some way.
mm,
Um, there's also the fact that if Filip Hrgović wins, that wouldn't be a bad
mm.
fight for David Allen either.
But
Um,
Hrgović isn't that good, is he? Really, not as good as people are making out, as his record suggests.
no, he's beaten Sean Turner, Tom Little, uh, Filiberto Tavar. That sounds like it was an all right win, to be honest. Guy was 9-0 at the time, but he's a Mexican heavyweight. Have you ever heard of Mexican heavyweights
Not
before?
really, no.
No. So yeah, Croatian heavyweight Filip Hrgović. He's gonna be, I think he's the favourite to beat Gary Cornish, to
Do
be
you
honest
think
with you.
Hrgović just has a built-up record, and that's all it is? That's all. And
Well, he's only,
There's no real.
well, he's only 5-0.
But where you look at these fighters and they build their records and they build it up, and then finally when I don't know, I have my suspicions about it.
To be fair, right, he's only 5-0. He had his debut against Rafael Zambano Love. He then beat a guy who was 6-0, Pavel Sauer, who was quite old from the Czech Republic. Then he beat Tom Little, who was 10-4 at the time. Sean Turner, who was 12-1. Filiberto Tovar, who was 9-0. And now he's fighting Gary Cornish, who's 25-2. So I mean, that's at least everybody he's fought in his career has a winning record. So
But,
in that sense, I don't think he's
but
too
Gary
overrated.
Cornish, as you've said before, is a very poor heavyweight who has an
Really
inflated
is.
record. That looks good, but he's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, if you beat a guy with 25 wins, that does sound like a good thing. But it's similar with
But it's not really,
Rafael.
is it?
Well, Rafael Zambano Love's got 39 wins, and it's like, yeah, but against who?
Yeah,
Who are the
exactly.
who are
Apart
those
from Brazil.
who are those 39 wins against? And when you actually look, some of them are not great. So
I'll tell you who they were. They were the street cleaners and the pimps of Brazil.
pretty much, um, any of his really hard fights he lost. Uh, I've really never heard of any of the guys he's beaten. But yeah, Hrgović, for example, I do think he's the favourite to beat Gary Cornish. I think he'll knock him out.
Oh,
And then I think that wouldn't be a bad fight for Dave Allen, but it would be a tough fight still.
I wouldn't fancy him to win.
I would fancy it to be a very good fight, but the thing is, Dave Allen's gonna have to go away and get himself in shape, like we talked about.
Fighting people like Joe Joyce and Philip Herbert won't do him any good.
That's true. You're probably right. Maybe this Cash Ali guy from
Yeah, that's
Birmingham. Yeah, he hasn't really beaten anyone yet. His most
no.
notable win seems to be David Howe, and Dave Allen knocked him out easily as well. So then we come on to the Conor Benn win, and he did well, the lad, Conor Benn. Decisive victory over Cedric Paynard, put right the wrong that was done before, made up for his error in the first fight. Looked quite not great, but looked good doing what he was doing in there. He's not a welterweight. Every time I talk about him, I say the same thing, but he's so small for welterweight. What did you make of him in there?
I thought he put on a good performance. He kept it on the back foot. Didn't fight. Didn't get scrappy too much.
Yeah, he didn't engage. Yeah.
Performance, but I'm not convinced. Like you say, he's a welterweight, and I'm not convinced he makes it past British title level.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being out of order. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think so. He won't make it out of British title level at that weight class. If he was to drop down to 140 and sort of
maybe, yeah, he could.
He could probably get further, but there's just no way. Like, he's a decent enough technician. He, like you said, he didn't get dragged into Paynard's fight, and he didn't scrap too much. He fought on the back foot, and that was smart, good tactics.
Shall we just be honest? If his last name wasn't Ben, we wouldn't be talking about him. No one would care.
I think we'd be talking about him, but like very much at the bottom of the card rather than halfway up the card. I agree. You know, when you've got a kid who's 12-0, it doesn't really matter whether their father was famous or not. That kind of builds interest. Yeah, so in that sense, that's great. But, you know, he had to beat this guy convincingly to move on, really, and it's good that he did.
First title.
Yeah, I saw that it was for a WBA Continental welterweight title, but what even really does that mean at this point? The WBA have, I don't. Is the Continental worth more than the International, or is the International? Right, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. Joshua Buatsi, KO, first round of Andres Pukimaiko. Now, this guy wasn't all that much, really, was he? 17 and 14. Kind of expected him to get knocked out at some point, but Buatsi did well, and it was a good finish. Did you catch this knockout?
It's the only fight I didn't get to see.
Oh, yeah, well, it's very short. The whole fight was 2 minutes long, so it's not a lot of your time out of. If you can find it, it's worth seeing the knockout. But yeah, I want to see him stepped up a little bit now. Fighting Andreas Plummer from Plummerville isn't.
What is he now? 7-0.
6-0. He might be 7-0 now. Yeah, he's 7-0 now.
But Yard doesn't want the fight.
No, but there's other fights. You just got to move on. Not worry about that one. Maybe that's not a bad idea. We've got to remember Buatsi's already 25. He's not.
I know. Yeah.
He's not 21 or 22 like the other Olympians that turned over. So you can't be.
What medal did he get at the Olympics? Because I forget. I've got such a bad memory.
I believe he got a bronze, but I don't want to undersell him. Let's have a look. Buatsi medal. Boxing at the.
We have to be honest.
Yeah. He got a bronze. Yeah, he got a bronze.
But if we put him in there with Yard now, Yard would be nothing, wouldn't he? If he got in there with Yard now, I think he'd kill him.
I think he would. I think he would probably do very, very, very well in that fight. I think it would be a good fight, but I think Yard's footwork's too slow and his defense is too poor, and I think Buatsi would knock him out. Yeah.
Yard is the most overrated. This is probably the most overrated fighter in Britain, I think.
Yeah, I think that's
You beat nobody.
I
Just
think
beat
that's
nobody.
fair in some way. I also think, you know, we harp on about every time I talk about Yard, I say the same thing. I'm not being unfair to Buatsi by saying he has to step up now. I say the same thing about Yard too. They've kept him back too long now, and I think they might have actually left it so late that when it does eventually happen, it's when they do step him up, he won't have had the actual learning fights he needs.
But the way we're going, Boaxi will have a title shot long before Yard ever did at this rate.
Probably, but Buatsi did have the very good amateur backgrounds that Yard did not have. I do think they'll fight at some point. I think maybe 1 year, 18 months, something like that. We might see them come together. But it was a good win for him. We'll move on to the Katie Taylor fight. I didn't actually see this one because I've been in a rush to catch up on all the
Yeah.
fights, and I expected her to win convincingly. I expect she
Po-
did.
Pointless fight. Over
Yeah,
in the third round, body shot, pointless.
yeah. Kind of expected it. It's kind of the obvious, but a good win for her in some ways. She's got her two titles still. They can look to make? I think the Chantel Cameron fight could grow quite big, and
Yeah.
it could be a good fight for the future.
Be
But
close.
at the moment, I'm just not interested when she fights these kind of opponents. Also,
I find it hard to watch her as well.
yeah,
At the minute.
I also think they still need to make the rounds 3 minutes long. Just my personal opinion. I think it's crazy. We talk about equality, we talk about setting role models and like all this kind of crap, and then you're going to actually make the women's round shorter, which just says to everyone they don't have the same stamina as men. They can't fight for as long. So it doesn't set a good opening introduction. I think like for boxing fans especially, we're used to 3 minute rounds. 2 minute rounds are over very, very quickly. It's not it's not that enjoyable to be honest. Uh but yeah, Derek Chisora, Carlos Takam.
Oh, wow.
Possible fight of the year contender?
Definitely, yeah.
This was a mega fight. An old you get the term throwback thrown around a lot, but this really was a throwback heavyweight fight, wasn't it? Reminiscent of
Definitely.
Dillian Whyte Chisora in some ways, reminiscent of older school heavyweight bruisers, and Takkam, for his part, put on a great performance and was probably up on the scorecards, in my opinion, at the time he got knocked out. His pressure was just incredible. His stamina was incredible, but you can't keep up that amount of pressure for that amount of rounds as a heavyweight. And so I wasn't surprised. I thought Chisora would slowly take over in the last few rounds again, but it ebbed and flowed this fight. You had Takam strong in the early rounds, Chisora coming back in the middle rounds, and then Takam had a couple of rounds, like 6 and 7 maybe, where he sort of looked the better and more fresh for a little while. And then Chisora just lands the punch from one of the greatest. The first knockdown was a lot better than the one that finished it. The one that finished it is quite interesting. So I don't know if you saw this, but I think basically the fight should have been over before the knockout. He
Really?
clearly, yeah. So if you watch the knockout, he has his hands down still, and he still doesn't really know where he is, and it almost looks like he goes to touch Chisora's glove for the end of the round, and then
Yeah.
Chisora just whops him one on the chin, and it's like, oh shit, the ref probably shouldn't have let him back out after the first knockdown, because the first knockdown still had him scrambled quite badly. But still a big punch, the second one, but kind of felt bad for him taking that second shot. But
None of
what
us were expecting Chisora to even win that. To be honest, we were
um
predicting against him.
to be honest with you,
Right.
I never make predictions with Chisora because I've explained this before. If he's
Yeah, I
hyped
know.
up, if he's hyped up for a fight, he'll do well. If he's not, he'll do shit. And I thought he'd probably do shit because what he doesn't really. Carlos Takam's a very nice guy, and he ain't gonna piss off Chisora much. Like, there's nothing Takkam's gonna say or do to try and wind up Chisora. So I thought Chisora would lose because he would come in and just be slow and boring, but he obviously knew his career was on the line, and he knew he had to put on a good performance to get another shot. And now I think he's moved into the top 10 of the WBA, so he could get a shot. He could actually get another shot. It's fascinating. One win and your whole fortunes change in the heavyweight division.
Crazy.
Very much so, but I'm very happy for him. I think a lot of people were happy to see him win, weren't they? Because
I'd like to see him fight the winner of Jarrell Miller and Manuel Charr.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good fight. Also, I wouldn't mind the Whyte rematch, but obviously Dillian Whyte's much further ahead now. He's going to want
the rematch. Easier this time.
I think so, but it's still a good last fight and payday for Chisora. It's definitely pay-per-view. Now that Whyte's Parker was pay-per-view, and how good the first fight was, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll still be a good rematch, but I don't think it will happen, sadly. I think Chisora should go after, like you say, Manuel Charr. Because
he's like one of those old guys that's just lying around there, isn't he? You know, the old-time British heavyweights now. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's the last of the Jigsaw of the David Haye sort of era. Does that make any sense?
It does, but it was such a good win over Takkam.
Well, it was amazing.
That it's a lot better than Parker or AJ's win over Takkam. So it's gonna get him back right up in the mix, I think. I think we'll see him fight maybe Wilder after Wilder fights Brazil.
You don't think Chisora would give Joshua that many problems? Because I don't really think he would. I think Joshua would kill him. Seriously, maybe I'm wrong.
I think it would be an interesting fight for a few rounds. And if Chisora got a lucky punch in, he still has a chance. But yeah, I don't think he'd give Joshua many problems. I don't think he'd give Wilder many problems. And I don't think he cares. I think he's far more happy to take one big payday off the back of this win. And we know what Chisora's like. He'll go and fight anyone as long as the money's right. He's crazy. He is crazy. Good win though. As for Takkam, he can come back. You know, it wasn't the worst loss. It was still a good performance. He looked good in certain rounds. Bit of a brutal knockout at the end, but he's been knocked out before. I'm sure he'll shake it off. Dillian Whyte, Joseph Parker. This was a cracking fight as well. Really, really good fight. I was impressed by Dillian Whyte, but I was not impressed by Joseph Parker. What were your thoughts of this fight?
Oh, it's very strange. I thought to myself, why did he take the fight? Such a hard fight on a comeback, and for 11 rounds he seemed to go missing.
He wasn't in the ring, was he? He wasn't in there. I think the first round he probably won.
Yeah.
But then
second round he was dead.
Yeah.
Third round he got knocked down as a result of a headbutt.
Yeah, I do think that was a headbutt, but a lot of people were saying the referee was shit. I don't really think the referee could have seen it because it was kind of on his blind side. And Whyte landed a punch on his chin at like a second afterwards. So when you're watching that in real time, it would have looked like a punch. So it is unfortunate, but I don't really blame the referee as much as other people were trying to cuss him out for that. I do think there's an interesting thing to be said, though, because if you had a challenge, like a red flag in your pocket, like the trainer had one, and he could throw it in the ring after a contentious knockdown, and you could see the replay, would that be a good thing, or would it give the boxers too much time to recover?
I think it would give the boxers too much time. Just leave things as they are, as nature intended.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. I think that it would be a good idea in the amateurs, because in the amateurs, obviously, the rounds are different. and it's more about scoring points and fair play. And I think it'd be a good place to test it. So yeah, I'm not sure what I think about it, but it's interesting because it would have changed this fight to a draw if that knockdown
Yeah.
had not been
But
given.
have you noticed that not Dylan White, that Parker, as soon as Whyte got up to him to confront him and fight him in the pocket, he backed off. He didn't like it.
Yeah, I think he felt White's power early. Like, I think, especially to the body, he really wasn't enjoying it. And I think another thing that happened was Parker sort of, I think what he expected was Dillian Whyte to get angry because of
Yeah.
his temperament and waste all of his energy, and then Parker could take over late. But it just never really happened. Whyte dragged energy out of himself in it, even when he had none. He did really well in this fight. I don't want to take anything away from Dillian Whyte, but I do think Joseph Parker will be kicking himself because it's another fight where he's come over to England and probably left 1 or 2 rounds of effort still in the ring, and he's only lost by 1 or 2 rounds.
It's bad, isn't it?
So
Because
I think there might be a rematch because it was that close, especially with the 11th. Obviously, we've got to talk about the 12th round.
yeah,
Parker obviously knocking Dillian Whyte down with 20 seconds to go. And this is the round that Parker really decided he was in a fight. Like, it was the only round he decided he was in a fight. The rest of it, he was boxing, he was running. Like, round 1, he did okay. And the rest of the rounds, he was on his bike. And then round 11, he sort of came to life. And round 12, he really took it to Whyte and almost stopped him. I didn't think. I think Whyte was smart because as soon as he got
he
up,
knocked him down in the 9th round, didn't he? Which was an impressive knockdown.
that was a great knockdown. That was an absolutely fantastic. That was an actual knockdown by Dillian Whyte. But I think those last 20 seconds of the fight show the experience that Dillian Whyte and the kind of fighter he is compared to Joseph Parker. When Whyte was hurt and there were 20 odd seconds left, he just fucking grabbed onto Parker, pushed him up against the ropes, and just laid there. And when the ref tried to separate them, he was like, "Nah, I'm not moving. There's 20 seconds left. Like, what are you going to do?"
But this fight screams to me that how good a fighter Hughie Fury is, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so. I think what we have to realise is obviously Hughie Fury runs as well. He doesn't engage sometimes, but in terms of landing punches and not getting hit, he yeah, I mean it is clear to see. I think Dillian Whyte Hughie Fury would be a good fight down the line, but I don't think they'll ever do that fight from what I hear. The camp sort of Hughie Fury and Dillian Whyte get like their families are close, or so. I don't know. I'll have to look into it again some more. But they were once scheduled to fight for the British, and one of them, I think it was Hughie. Hughie pulled out. Like, no, we don't want to fight the Dillian Whyte camp. We're sort of friends with them and stuff. I don't know. It's a weird excuse, but
where does this put Joseph Parker now? Because he's in a position where, as a comeback fighter, he could have picked anyone he liked who was easier. And, you know, because obviously I think the first loss affected him. I think that Joshua loss affected his confidence.
I think so, but I think he could go and beat someone like the likes of Lenroy Thomas or someone like that and get is New Zealand part of the Commonwealth? I'm never sure.
Yeah. It is, yeah.
So he can fight for the Commonwealth belt, can't he? So that would probably be a good route.
Would you agree his career's gone in reverse? Because these are the fights you take before you win a world title, not after you've been world champion. Do you agree? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean. And for a former world champion, he did not show enough heart in that fight.
No, he didn't.
I think the Andy Ruiz Jr. fight showed that was possible to do to him, though. Because if Andy Ruiz Jr. was more fit, I think he might have been able to overwhelm Parker as well. For all the talk of being a Samoan warrior, he doesn't like to fight. He likes to box, and he likes a friendly boxing match. but he hated
When
the
you
rough
compare
stuff.
him to David Chua, it kind of puts it to shame, really, don't it? What a warrior David Chua was.
In some senses, sure. Yep. I think the New Zealanders are going to be very quiet about all this, though. You know,
I mean, do you
they
remember the amount of abuse we would get just for being British fans talking about Joshua, and they just give us loads of shit? I'm thinking you don't
yeah,
want to
it
go
was
away.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
But he is a world class fighter. There's no denying it. You know,
Yeah, I think he needs to go. I think he needs to do a similar
a
thing to
new
Dave
trainer.
Allen. Go away for 6 months, find a new trainer, get in shape. Because I don't think he was in the. I think he was a bit too heavy for that fight. You know, it didn't. If he wanted to box on the back foot and move, then he should have stayed light. If he wanted to
He
box,
always looks in good shape. I mean, he doesn't. He never looks in bad shape.
not in bad shape, but he's not. He didn't have the stamina for 12 rounds in there, did he? That's it.
Remember,
It didn't look
Samoan
like it.
people, the density, they're normally stocky kind of people. They're not normally athletes like him. Do you know what I mean? These Samoan
That's
guys.
that's true in some ways. It's true in some ways. But yeah, it's an interesting one for me. Whatever he does next, I'll watch with interest.
But
He's been
whatever
in
he
good
does
enough
next, that
fights.
has to be a good, good matchmaking to get him back. Without the path of least resistance, really.
Yeah, I think the
He's,
Lenroy look for the Lenroy Thomas fight, man. I think that's the way to
even
go.
the Carlos Takkam rematch would be good.
Maybe. I think yeah, I think you're right. I think so. That wouldn't be a bad fight, but
What about him and Derek Chisora? Who
oh
would you pick to
no.
win?
Derek Chisora's got the same style Dillian Whyte has when he's on
You don't
form.
think Chisora would beat
I do.
Parker, do you?
On their current
Seriously,
form, yeah, why not? Because
he could do.
Derek Chisora fights in a similar style to Dillian Whyte. He ran Dillian Whyte very close in a war, and he'll just do a similar tactic to what Whyte did to Parker. And if
When I
Parker
look at
doesn't want the
when
fight,
I look at
then he
yeah, when I look at Derek Chisora and Dillian White, when I see Dillian White, I see like a 2 point version of Chisora, but with much better.
I don't know how much better he is. I think when
A little
Derek
bit.
Chisora was in his prime, he was actually very good. The thing is, he's 38 now and he's not in his prime, but I still think he's got one more. If he puts in the same performance he did against Takkam, against
Yeah.
Parker, he could stop Parker late. So because Parker doesn't want to fight in the trenches. So yeah, it's an interesting one for me. I think he could win it. I don't think he would win it. I think Parker's the favourite, but I think
Oh
it's
yeah.
not. I think Chisora has shown a lot more heart than Parker has over his career, and that can win you a lot of fights in the heavyweight division.
But Parker had good matchmaking up to his world title, didn't he?
For sure. He'd never really fought anyone all that good.
No, and he basically won a belt that was basically gift wrapped to him, wasn't it? Really, but I don't want to be too disrespectful.
In some ways, but he did defend it against Andy Lee Jr. and Hughie Fury. That's not bad title defenses. It's
But
not the best.
Van I mean, God, he's a pretty poor fighter, isn't he? When you look at it, really.
Yeah.
It shows you how good Ortiz is.
Sure, that's true. Let's move on to the Mikey Garcia card. He had a fight with Robert Easter Jr. and I haven't managed to catch this fight yet.
I haven't seen it either.
I know that Mikey Garcia won by unanimous decision, and a lot of people said that was the right decision. He did win. But yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it before commenting on it any more. I saw Luis Ortiz Razvan Kajanu, because it was such a brutal knockout, the count wasn't even continued, was it? It was like, no, he is out. He is gone. He's gone ski. So yeah, unfortunately for Kajanu, he's not the second coming of Jakov Gospic. It's not meant to be. But Luis Ortiz back with a win against a somewhat credible opponent, but not really. You know, I've heard talks that Luis Ortiz might be fighting Wilder in a rematch. And if they do that, well, the thing is for me, I wouldn't. Because it would be the second time. Well, remember how Wilder fought Bermain Stavern and then he fought Bermain Stavern again?
Yeah.
Well, he'd be fighting Ortiz and then he'd be fighting Ortiz again. And it would just be like, why are the WBC... They're favouring the ex-champion a bit too much at that point, I think. It's a bit...
Ortiz is a different class to Bermain Stavern. Yeah.
He is, but he doesn't deserve the title shot yet off beating Razvan Kajanu. I would say Dillian Whyte, who just beat Parker, is way more deserving of the next title shot if it's coming.
Would you pick Dillian Whyte to beat Luis Ortiz, or wouldn't you? Because I wouldn't like to say in that instance.
That is a tough fight. Luis Ortiz is too old. I think Dillian Whyte would win it on heart, grit, and determination, but either man could get Sparko in that fight.
Yeah.
Because it
Ortiz
would just
is still an elite fighter. I mean, if he was 10 years younger, imagine how great he would be.
He's not. I think he's an elite. He's got the elite technical skills still, but I would say that he doesn't have anywhere close to the elite speed anymore. For example, I think Tyson Fury, Hughie Fury, probably, and Wilder as well, as we saw, they could all run rings around him for most of the fight. I mean, Wilder didn't. He boxed pretty shit until he got the knockout against Ortiz. But I think if he boxed in a more conservative manner, he could keep Luis Ortiz away from him all fight.
I know we slate Wilder, but you know the knockouts speak for themselves.
They do, and the first win against Bermain Stavern, where he kept him on the end of a jab and didn't let him touch him, that was a good win. Well, it was a good performance though, because it showed he doesn't need to just knock people out; he can actually box a bit. Mikey Garcia, Robert Easter Jr. Good card. I will come back and watch that fight at some point another time. You sent me one more card. I'm not sure who it was.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's just one long version of the first one. Right. Well, we'll move slowly over to the news. There is some interesting news. For example, this, I don't know if this is one you've sent me, but Billy Joe Saunders and Andrade have agreed terms, meaning that Matchroom and Frank Warren have come to an actual agreement for once in their lives. It's crazy, isn't it? It's unheard of. It's not unheard of, but it's so rare, especially for big fights. I think Billy Joe Saunders wins this fight, though, quite convincingly. I've never been that impressed by Andrade. I think he's sort of I was having this conversation with Stay Robinson. I think he's sort of a B-level fighter, and he's never really shown anything yet at middleweight. I think Billy Joe Saunders will just be too slick for him.
Well, this is only Andrade's second fight at middleweight.
Yeah.
You know, you remember he was a super welterweight for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
World-class fighter, but I'd say upper B.
Yeah, I don't know if he's fully world-class. I know he's world-class, yeah, but he's not elite, whereas Billy Joe Saunders...
Not middleweight. Super welterweight, he was world-class.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's how to put it, for sure. Interesting, though. It's interesting that they came to a deal. I'm glad that happened. I'm glad we get to see the fight. Billy Joe Saunders needed another opponent now that Canelo and GGG are going to be, that fight's happening. So it is all very interesting stuff. Another thing I saw, which I'm not even sure we should cover this, but if the BBC have covered it, I suppose we can.
Yeah.
Lee McAllister has retired at heavyweight after a crazy win over Danny Williams. Now, Danny Williams is the geezer who lost to Mike Tyson, right?
Yeah.
No, he's the geezer
That beat Mike Tyson
that beat Mike Tyson. Jesus Christ.
10
Yeah,
years ago.
sorry. That's yeah. He's the geezer who beat Mike Tyson, and yet he's still fighting. He's
Yeah.
45. He had a 4 stone advantage over this other guy, but he was
Yeah.
knocked down 3 times, and then the towel was thrown in the 10th round.
Yeah.
And yeah, he had it was for the
BU.
WBU belt, which
And it was
I'm not sure how an unsanctioned fight can be for a belt.
well, God knows that. Now, I've
Yeah,
looked on the box rec and it's not even on the box rec.
yeah. It's not. No, it's probably a nothing belt.
It's a bit of a joke, this fight, really, isn't it? When you look at it, really.
It's sad that he's still fighting. It shows that boxing needs to create some sort of pension scheme for retired boxers. If you fought over a certain number of fights, you shouldn't have to be fighting on
What
when you're
ever happened to all
45.
his money? He made like about 600 grand against Klitschko or 700 grand.
I don't
It's
know,
weird.
bro. It's
Weird.
weird, but it can happen. It's just one of those things. Anyway, let's swiftly move on. Frank Warren and Tony Bellew arguing over whether Anthony Joshua has been offered a contract to fight Deontay Wilder. Now, I know for a fact there was no contract. I know it. Warren's absolutely bullshitting. Bellew knows for a fact there was no contract sent by Wilder's team to Eddie Hearn. Didn't happen. Literally didn't happen. They sent an offer and a guarantee, but they never sent a contract to sign. So it just doesn't make sense why Frank Warren would be getting into this battle at all. Like they were literally, were they on Talk Sport together? No, it was this on Twitter? I'm not sure. Oh
No,
no,
this was on. He was on Talksport.
yeah. Turn down
That's
a guarantee. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like, of course you'd turn down a guarantee. The fight was never going to happen on the $50 million offer that didn't even come from a promoter. It came from Wilder himself. So I've made my thoughts clear on this anyway. The whole thing's fucking ridiculous. The fight will
yeah.
happen at some point. People need to get over it. And, they do need to realize who brings the money to this fight. And it's not the American fans. Wilder's not a pay-per-view fighter. Pay-per-views are not selling well in America at the moment. Look at Andre Ward's pay-per-views against Kovalev. They did like 150,000 buys. We're doing 1 million plus buys in the UK. So, it's just ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. Boxing news. I've got an interesting article talking about the Groves Callum Smith fight. It has been confirmed they're going to fight in Saudi Arabia. How do you feel about this? You're going to be flying out there, Nathan?
About what? Sorry.
Groves, Smith fighting in Jeddah,
I
Saudi
think it's
Arabia.
ridiculous. I think
You're
it's
going to be
bloody
you're going to be
ridiculous.
you're going to be flying out there?
No,
You booking your tickets now?
sod that. If it was in England, I'll go and see it.
Sure, but instead, the city of Jeddah, King Abdullah Sports City, is going to host the final, and the temperature currently in Jeddah is 38 degrees. And in September, it's even hotter. So it'll probably be like 45 degrees, something like that. And it's an outdoor stadium. So George Groves' bald head is going to get very sunburnt by the end of the fight. Just ridiculous, the whole thing, the whole fucking thing. Why would this fight not be in England? It doesn't. You got 2 guys from England fighting in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. It makes as much sense as putting the next World Cup in Qatar. Oh wait, they did put the next World Cup in Qatar.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ. Fucking hell. Yeah, some things make me pissed off, but this fight is fucking
it's
absurd.
terrible. It's not. Who's going to? How many British fans will go out? I mean, you'll get probably a few thousand, maybe go out. There won't be much more than that.
You'll get 1,000 Groves fans, you'll get 1,000 Smith fans, you'll get a
That's it.
thousand expats who live in Saudi Arabia for work, and then you'll get nothing else. It'll be fairly empty because boxing is not big in the Middle
But
East,
this
really.
fight should really be in Germany or England. You know, it
It
isn't
should
Germany.
really, really be in Liverpool or London. Really, it should either be near Smith's home or near Groves' home. Or if they don't want to do that, right, because that's unfair, they could put it at Cardiff because it's not hard for, we see that English fans will travel to Cardiff to go to a fight. Cardiff's a nice neutral, Wales is a neutral place. So there's many ways they could do this fight. It would make more money and more sense. But maybe they've sold this fight to the Saudis for a lot of money. Maybe the Saudis have promised, look, it doesn't matter how many tickets you sell, we're going to pay you like 30 million or 50 million to put the fight here anyway, because sometimes they do that. So yeah. Yes, very odd, very odd, very odd. Carl Frampton is fighting a guy called Luke Jackson, the Jackal, 16-0 Australian. No one really cares about this, do they?
I don't. I'm not really bothered about that fight.
No. The problem is that Leo Santa Cruz is pissing himself laughing. Like, the thing is, Leo Santa Cruz is still out there fighting named opponents, keeping his name relevant. So when the rematch happens for the third fight between Frampton and Leo Santa Cruz is going to get the much bigger share because Frampton's out here fighting nobodies.
Frampton hasn't looked good recently, has he?
No, maybe they know that, and that's why this is a sort of tune-up fight, a step down so that he can get back to his good form. But it's not interesting to me. I'm really sort of finding it hard to care. Something I did want to mention very quickly for next weekend, Devin Alexander fighting Andre Berto. Quite a good fight, that. Not, close matchup. Sergey Kovalev is out against a guy called Eleider Alvarez, 23-0 Colombian, fights out of Canada and America, has some good wins. Beat Juan Pascal, Lucien Bute, Chilemba. Some decent wins. Miranda, Dachenko. Yeah, so this is a good fight, in my opinion. Kovalev's obviously the favourite, as he usually is, but this guy's 23-0 and some good wins against convincing opposition. So it might not be a bad fight, this one. I advise people to tune into that. And Dimitri Bivol is defending his belt against Isaac Chilemba, who, can be tricky at times, but I expect Bivol to win that fairly comfortably, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it's easy defense.
It's not a lot of boxing, really, is there? Really, it's a bit dead now.
Well, I'd say Alexander and Berto's a good fight, at least. So I'm looking forward to that. As for the weekend afterwards, there's not a lot on, and the weekend after that, not really. Bryant Jennings versus Alexander Dimitrenko doesn't really excite me very much. I'm going to be having to go and do some extra studying for my work soon. So we might even have a couple of months off from the podcast and come back to it when the boxing gets more exciting again towards the end of the year.
So we won't be having any in August and possibly not September. I mean, we may come back in the middle of September.
I
depending on
think
how
that's
many people.
probably realistic. Yeah, that's probably very
So
realistic.
6 weeks away.
Something.
I will be doing the odd video in between.
Please do. Please feel free to. Yeah. There's not a lot more else to cover. Obviously, everybody saw that Anthony Joshua signed a new contract with Matchroom, 3-year deal, big news. I got sick of hearing about, oh, Willie, won't he? Is he
So,
going somewhere else? It gets boring. I like it when someone puts pen to paper, clears up the whole situation. No one has to worry about it anymore. So, yeah, it's interesting. Good stuff. Good stuff. I'll have to leave it there for today, bro, unless there was anything else you wanted to add or bring up.
uh, only James to. No, we've already talked about James to go, but
Did we? What's he doing?
he vacated his belt, didn't he?
Yeah, we talked about that. This Cat's guy's a nasty fight, so I can understand why he did that. Tyson Fury talking about fighting Deontay Wilder. That's one thing we didn't cover yet. What do you make of this? Do you think it's all talk?
I think it's all talk. I don't think it will happen, and plus he's not ready.
He's not, is he? I've watched his most recent workout videos. He is in better shape than he was a month ago,
Yeah.
but he's still not 100%, is he?
Problem with Tyson is that he just needs to take his comeback. He's doing the right thing. Obviously, the opponents are not going to be great, but he's stepping up a little bit now.
Yeah, I think, Pianetta's not a bad, it's not a terrible fight. Then he should move on to somebody like that. If Hrgovic beats Sexton, that wouldn't be a terrible fight for Tyson Fury, because it would give him an actual challenge. Rematch? Oh God, a trilogy of tough defeats for Chisora. If Chisora beats Manuel Char and gets a belt, then maybe, but not.
But they're friends anyway.
Yeah, they are now. I don't think they'd fight again. I tell you what fight would still sell, but there's almost no way it would happen. But there's some part of me that still feels like it could happen, maybe, possibly. But do you think BT could sell Tyson Fury David Haye pay-per-view?
They probably could, They could get away with it now. But, it would sell, wouldn't it?
It would sell. That's the worrying thing. Because of the old beef.
Kind of alarming?
It is alarming, but it's because of the old beef. The old beef between them. But I don't think Tyson Fury would sign a fight with him because he lost 2 years of his career to injuries. And
can I be honest? Do you think Tyson Fury beating David Haye? How many years ago were they meant to fight? Was it 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think he would have beaten him quite convincingly.
He would have beaten Haye, wouldn't he? Yeah. Probably. I still believe that to this day. That's why Haye didn't take the fight.
I think he would have beaten him quite convincingly. I think he was just too big. It's a similar problem. Like Tyson Fury's not Nikolai Valuev. He's more like Vladimir Klitschko in some ways.
But he's not. 2009, I think he would have beaten Tyson Fury of 2013 back then. If you'd had the Haye that beat Valuev.
Maybe not. I think you still got to remember that reach advantage. And, we saw what Vladimir Klitschko did to David Haye. I think it would have been a similar looking fight. I think David Haye would have been
what I mean is that version that beat David Haye, that Klitschko wouldn't have lost to Tyson Fury. That version.
Possibly. That's a tougher call. I think that would have been a closer fight, but I think he would have still lost. I don't know though. You are right. That does make it harder.
I just think Tyson Fury's career has been up and down because of stuff outside the ring. Other than that, he's done nothing wrong. He's done well to even come back. To be
honest. Sorry, I needed a drink. Sorry for drinking into the microphone.
You've got to be honest. He's done well to even come back.
He has done well. A lot of people, when they get to that weight, they never get back out of it. So, yeah, it is impressive. It is impressive. But as I was saying, in terms of the Wilder fight, I personally think that Frank Warren will try and make that fight for the fourth fight because Tyson Fury probably won't sign another contract with him because he'll be able to do his own thing again because he will have had his comeback fights already. So Frank Warren will want to make as much money out of Tyson Fury as possible. And so that fourth fight could well be Deontay Wilder.
If he had any sense, he would break that contract with Frank Warren. As soon as his fight contract's up, he'd leave and go to Eddie Hearn. Is he still anything to do with Hennessy Promotions or not?
Yeah, I think they're co-promoting him or co-manager. I don't really know. It's messy because he's also managed by MTK Global now, so it's messy.
If it had any sense, he would sign with Eddie Hearn. He'd have made a lot more money.
I don't think he would have made a lot more money because he wanted to fight 4 bums. I think it was smart to sign with Frank Warren for his 4 comeback fights, and then he should move on after that sort of thing.
Isn't it a crying shame that we've got a fighter that's naturally more talented than Joshua, yet he can't make the same sort of money? Isn't that crazy?
It is, but I think that happens a lot in a lot of industries. You get a lot of musicians who make music who can't make a lot of money off their albums because the radio only plays the same 6 songs every day. So you get it.
Fans can relate more to Tyson Fury than they can with Joshua, I believe. I can relate more to Tyson Fury than I can to Joshua.
No, you're not a casual fan. You're a boxing fan, and so that's why. Anyway, bro, it started to chuck it down with rain here, and all my windows are open, so I'll have to end it here and catch you soon.
See you all later, people. Bye.
And we'll catch you soon. Bye, chat.